Hi, my name is Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a tag video. I was tagged a couple of months ago by Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf to do the big books tag. So I'll link below to Alice's video and also to the original creator's video as well. So this tag is where we talk about big books. We talk about the biggest books that we've ever read and the biggest books on our TBR. First of all, do I like reading big books? I would say that big books do intimidate me, as they probably do for a lot of people. I will show you about, how many have I got here? I've got about 12 books that are on my physical TBR at the moment. And I think probably the reason for a number of them, why I've not picked them up yet, is because they are big books. There is one in particular that I think has been on my shelf for 10 years. That's a long time. I don't dislike big books because some of my favourite authors, who we will get to shortly, tend to write bigger books, and I really enjoy them. I think a big book, when it's working well for you, can be such an immersive experience. And I really like when you have some free time and you can just dive into a big book and just immerse yourself in that world. But I will say some of these books that I have not yet read are quite intimidating to me for a number of different reasons. So first off, I'll show you 5 of the longest books I've ever read. Now, the longest book I've ever read, which I'll get to in a moment, is over 1,000 pages long. I don't own a copy, so it was quite easy for me to know that that is the longest one I've ever read. With the others, I don't own a lot of physical books because I use the library so much, so I've sort of picked the ones that are the longest from my shelves, the ones that I have like copies of. So first up is The Paying Guests by Sarah Waters. So Sarah Waters is my favourite author. She tends to write big books. This is the longest one of hers that I have a physical copy of. And The Paying Guests comes in at 595 pages. And I love Sarah Waters' books, obviously. I love the worlds that she creates, the characters. She has great plot lines, and like I could read a Sarah Waters book that was like double this size and I would still love it. Next is Life After Life by Kate Atkinson. This was a copy I picked up at a charity shop recently because it is a book I do want to reread. Let's find the final page. Where's the new page numbers? So this is 608 pages. This is a book that I first read several years ago with my book club and I absolutely loved it. It's about a woman who sort of keeps getting reborn and lives further into her life each time she is reborn. It's a little bit mind-bending. I mean, not totally, but I remember some of the other members of my book club didn't get on with the sort of slightly odd time loopy element of it, but I really enjoyed it. Next is a book that I read a few years ago and it was one of my favourite books that I read that year, and it's The Magus by John Fowles. This comes in at 656 pages, and I just remember feeling so immersed in this book and absolutely loving it, even though for a lot of the time, like, you're not entirely sure what's going on, but that is the point. So it's about a man who, I can't remember why, but ends up going to this remote Greek island, and there is this other guy there who is quite powerful living on the island, and the whole time the main character doesn't really know if he can trust this guy. He doesn't know what's real and what's not, so it feels very disorienting reading the book because that's how the main character feels throughout. But I had such a good time with this. I definitely want to read more by John Fowles. I think the only one I've read as well is The Collector. So yes. And then we have House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. This edition comes in at, there are a lot of appendices. Where's the book finish? Let's see. 662 pages this edition comes in at. Kind of feels like a textbook. I don't know why I still own this book, because I think I gave it like 2 stars, and I think it might be because well, probably because I bought it new and it wasn't cheap, because look at the size of it. Would I reread this? I don't know. Like, I've heard there's different ways you can read this book, so you've probably heard of it. So we have sort of like a main plot of this man who buys this house, and the house is bigger on the inside than on the outside, a bit weird. And the actual like format of the text is like just a bit like odd. And then we have all these footnotes about this other guy who I think finds the manuscript or something. So I think you can read it in different ways. And it was one of them where, I mean, I read to the end of it, where I wasn't sure if I was the problem or if the book was the problem. So I have kept this on my shelf, but it is taking up a lot of space. So yeah. And then the biggest book that I have ever read. So I read this 25 years ago, and it is around 1,300 pages long. So I had a look and I tried to see which edition I would have read. So yeah, around 1,300 pages long, and it's The Stand by Stephen King. And I remember being thoroughly immersed in that book and really, really enjoying it, even though it's enormous. So it's sort of a post-apocalyptic story of what I can remember from this group of people who are sort of journeying, sort of fighting for their survival. But yeah, I remember being thoroughly entertained and engaged by it. So those are the longest books, well, some of the longest books that I have ever read. So what I thought I would do now is I've pulled from my shelf some of the biggest books on there. There's about 12 or 13 books here, I think. If anyone is interested in buddy reading any of these books, then please do let me know, because that might encourage me to pick them up sooner rather than later. So there's a couple of classics that were on my shelves, and I was actually surprised that these weren't longer, but it's possibly just the editions that I have, but I thought I would include them in this video because one of the reasons I haven't picked them up yet is because they do intimidate me. So we have Crime and Punishment by Dostoyevsky. This edition comes in at 442 pages. The text in this is quite small, and it has very small page margins. So I suspect that is why this edition is maybe shorter than others. I really am interested to read some Dostoyevsky, but I mean, it kind of sounds like my kind of thing, but I also feel like there might be a high chance of a DNF. So, and then the other classic that I have on my shelf is The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins, and this one comes in at 460, oh, it's the final page, 462 pages. So I don't really know anything about this. It's about the theft of a diamond, I think. Wilkie Collins is meant to be one of the sort of earliest detective writers. I've only read, I think, a short story from him before, so I would like to get to this at some point, obviously. Another book which is quite long is The Mermaid Mrs Hancock by Imogen Hermes Gowar. This is, how long is this? When you look at how many pages there are, you've got to try and not see any spoilers for the end of the book. 484 pages. I picked this up in a charity shop. My library does have a copy, but my library only has a hardback, and the hardback edition of this book is enormous. And this is a rather nice cover as well. This is historical fiction about a man who I think finds a mermaid. That's all I know about it. Then I have two books by the same author, and it's Orhan Pamuk. So I think, which is long. So I've got My Name is Red. This is, it's not too long, 503 pages. And I have The Black Book, which is shorter, 466 pages. Even though it's definitely fatter, it's shorter. Anyway, so this is an author I am interested to get to. But again, I feel like these are books that I probably need to focus on and sort of like dedicate some time to. but I do want to get to at least one of them soonish. When I say soon, I mean in the next 6 to 12 months. That's my definition of soon. Then we have Fatherland by Robert Harris. This is on my TBR purely by chance. I got a load of books online from a charity shop when we were in lockdown, and you didn't know what you were getting. You just sort of gave a genre preference, and this was one of the ones that I got. So I am interested in reading this. This comes in at 502 pages. The text is very big actually, so it's not as long as it looks. So this is historical fiction, and it is an alternate history of I think Germany winning the war. Okay, the next book is the one that I think has been on my shelf for 10 years. Which is a long time. And it's The Unconsoled by Kazuo Ishiguro. Now, how many pages is this? This is 535 pages. So I got this in a charity shop, and I did start reading it not long after I bought it. And I DNF'd it because at the time I hadn't been very well, and this book is a bit weird. So it's about a pianist who, and I'll quote the back, arrives in a Central European city he cannot identify for a concert he cannot remember agreeing to give. So it's very sort of dreamlike. You don't quite know what's going on. Things are shifting. People are changing. It's quite odd. So at that time, it wasn't the right time for me to read that kind of book. And it has sat on my shelf for, I think, 10 years, which is crazy. I really like Ishiguro. I think I have like 3 of his books left to read. I think there's this, The Buried Giant, and An Artist of the Floating World. But I do feel like I will really like this book, as long as I'm in the right frame of mind for it. Okay, next one is Gate of the Sun by Elias Khoury. This is one that I got in a few of these actually are ones that I've got in my book subscription service. So this one is one of the ones, and there's another one that has really, really small writing, and a lot of pages as well. It is 501 pages. So the small writing does put me off because I just don't know if that's going to be an enjoyable reading experience. So this one is about Lebanon and stories from refugee camps. So I think it's fiction, but it interweaves true life stories as well. So that's that. And then another one, which also has really small writing, is Somersault by Kenzaburo Oe. I don't know how you pronounce that. This has 570 pages. Super small writing, like really small writing. It does sound quite good, this one. This is a Japanese novel about 2 men who are in a cult, and then they leave the cult, and then, I don't know, stuff happens. So, like, it does sound intriguing because it's not the kind of thing I would often read about. But again, it's more so the small font that puts me off. That one. Next is a book that I bought in a charity shop. I don't think I'm going to like this book. I don't know if I'm ever going to pick it up. I feel like this is like a 90% chance of a DNF. And it's the Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. This comes in at... Is that the final? Yeah. 614 pages. Yeah, it's a... I think it's like a family saga, which is like my worst kind of book. I have not really read Barbara Kingsolver. I DNF'd Demon Copperhead. I've not picked up any of her other books. I know this is one of her most well known, I think. But again, am I ever going to read this? I don't know. Next is some Scandinavian crime fiction. This is Between Summer's Longing and Winter's End by Leif Pearson. This is another one that I got in my book subscription box, and I don't know why I've not read it yet, because apparently it's acclaimed as one of the greatest Swedish crime novels of all time. This comes in at 620, try not to see spoilers, 638 pages, which is a chunker. I don't really like this cover. I don't like people on covers like that. But anyways, this is set in Stockholm. And I think it's like, it says it's about a complex web of treachery, politics and espionage. The rotten heart of Sweden's government. I'm not super keen on like political crime stories. But I will give that a go at some point. And then finally, the longest book on my physical TBR. And this book is long. It's 1,006 pages long, and it actually normally sits like on this shelf down here. So it's not looking at me, it's not staring at me every day. It's Jonathan Strange and Mr Norrell by Susanna Clarke. So this is a big book. Now, I read Piranesi by Susanna Clarke when it first came out, so it must have been maybe 4 years ago. And I remember, obviously I loved it. And then I remember thinking to myself, oh, I must pick up Jonathan Strange and Mr Norrell. And in my mind, I wanted to pick it up before the end of that year. Clearly that hasn't happened. I didn't own this copy then, but my library has a copy. I acquired this copy for free last year. And in that time I have reread Piranesi even, and have still not picked this up because this is very intimidating. I've heard a lot of people, I've heard lots of people love it. Lots of people have DNF'd it. I don't know. So it's about magicians in, is it the 19th century? Yeah, I don't know. I do want to give this a go, but I think I'm more nervous because like I might DNF it, and I don't want to DNF it, but I might do. I don't know. If anyone wants to buddy read this one, let me know, or any of the others. But I need to give this, I feel like this is probably one that I need to have time set aside to try to get into. So maybe it'll be a good one to read like maybe over Christmas when I've got time off work or something like that, so I can sort of focus on it. Because I think that's the thing sometimes with big books, is you need to sort of like break the back of it. You need to get a chunk into it, and then you're like, and once you're in it, it's fine, you're in it. But yeah, so we shall see. So those are some big books on my TBR. What this has done though, it has made me excited to pick up some of these books. I mean, when that will happen, I don't know. In my mid-year check-in, I said that my main goal for the rest of the year was to read from my shelves as much as I can, rather than from the library, just to make some space on my shelves. That plan has not been going well. My library reserving has gone through the roof in the last month or two, and book season is upon us, so obviously I've reserved all the books I possibly can from the library. But I probably need to calm down and read some books from my shelves, and hopefully some of these before the end of the year. So I haven't even thought about who I'm going to tag. Who has done this tag and who has not? Bear with me one moment. Okay, I'm going to tag a couple of people. I don't know if these people have done this tag, so if you have, I'm sorry, but it's been around for a while and I can't remember. So I'm going to tag Amelia Barlow Books, and I'm going to tag Tiffany from Towering TBR. Thank you for watching, and do let me know if you've read any of these books, if you have any recommendations for which of these ones I should get to sooner rather than later. Let me know if you do fancy buddy reading any of them, and let me know what the longest book you've read is and what the longest book on your TBR is. Thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Bye!